Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delaying the meeting for just a moment because we're waiting on a piece of information from the City Hall. So as soon as we receive that, we'll begin. Thank you. I didn't understand what you just said.
He said that the rollback when I talk about it and all.
Yeah.
That's at 5. I don't have to worry about it.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, we'll get started then. Okay.
By the way, he talked to Bill Rhodes. He's going to put a brewery in the post office.
Wow.
Sam Adams.
Wow.
Yeah. Very few days on what Mike and I are discussing. This is not for the workshop. We were just talking formally about the budget, but for the hearing later, to introduce it, Michael's going to say what percentage we're over the rollback rate and give a summary of why
Okay.
we're spending money on. That's just basically checking boxes for the statute. It's just the way you set up the hearing.
Okay.
So, but that's for later.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. At this time, I'd like to call this workshop to order. If everybody's ready. Was everyone ready? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. This workshop, this is sort of what I would like to do as far as conducting this today as the chairperson of the workshop. If anyone has objection, I'm certainly willing to listen and listen to your ideas of how to do it differently. I wanted to give the city manager as much time as he needs to introduce the budget, to talk about anything he would like to inform us as the board or the public or both about the budget. At that point, what I would like to do is I'll just open the floor for questions from each commissioner. It doesn't matter what order you ask the questions. What I would like to ask you to do is, as you ask each question, please let us know what page you're referring to so that everyone can turn to that page and be aware of the question that you're asking. Once the commission has exhausted their questions and concerns about the budget, then I will ask for questions and commentary and concerns from the public. And if you have something specific that was brought up during the meeting that you want to go back to, that's certainly allowable. So if you just kind of check the things that you want to talk about, and staff, if you have questions, or also as we move along with this budget today, if you feel there's something that you need to say to the commission to inform them correctly about some question that is being asked, please feel free to approach the podium as a staff member, because you have a very large role in the development of this budget. I know you all did. So if that is there any objection to the way that I've put down to conduct the meeting? Okay, then Mr. White, if you would, please lead us off.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you all for attending, and I first like to start out by thanking my staff. I tasked them with a lot of stuff from our strategic planning to this budget, so they had to really think heavily on the future of City of Lynn Haven and the things we really need, and so I really want personally thank all y'all for helping me. With that, I'd like to turn your attention to page 7. I'm going to try to do a high view of the budget for you and try to answer some questions and some anomalies. Before I get started, there are a few anomalies. One is, as I discussed with several of y'all independently and together, I'm a big proponent of trying to make all costs be shown in the department they're spent in. So you will see a lot of new departments in this budget. And as we move forward, there may be some added later to other budgets. But right now, this is where we want to go, such as the marketing communications budget. So it has a lot to do with a lot of the events we do, and also getting word out about information. You'll see it. You'll also see customer service, which is a big one. And you'll see the difference between community services and facility management. So we kind of pull those apart, so where they can have their own budgets and we can properly budget and be ready for whatever unexpected things may come. as everybody knows, as far as my staff knows, you know, this is a budget. Just because in a budget, you know, I still have the authority given by you to approve, disapprove once it is approved in the budget. And I assure you, each time before we do make a decision, we do look at the budget, make sure we can afford it. So at that time, with that, page 7, the general fund, we're looking at gathering in hopefully a little more than $4 million in the general fund. I'm going to stick on the first column first, and you know, with other taxes, permits, it brings all our revenues down to about $14.5 million, almost 14.6. And as you look at our expenditures, you can see where we broke some of those out, and bringing those expenditures down, you'll see a total expenditure of 15.7. With that, I want to make it known that it shows that we have a deficit in our ending fund balance in the general fund, but however, we'll be collecting $853,084 in surtax debt proceeds in this fiscal year, but it will not be spent until next year. We also will be using $300,000 worth of impact fees to renovate the fire department, which are in this year's budget but be spent next year. And also we have in here $170,000 for the roundabout at Country Club entrance. So that's an impact fees, traffic impact fees that we've collected, but will not be spent to this year. So if you take that out and look at the fund balance, it actually, the way the money will be spent, if it was collected in the next fiscal year, we'd actually be $201,000 to the good. So with the CRA fund, we've went over that quite a bit. You're looking at about $323,000 collected there, with expenditures about $293,000, with the estimated ending fund balance of $580,000. The water fund, which water fund enterprise fund is the best fund that we have set up as far as financially stable. You're looking at about $7.8 million in it, with expenditures around 7.8. However, I'd like to draw your attention to towards the bottom. It says other uses, transfers out, that $914,902. If you go to the stormwater fund and look under transfers in at the top, just above total revenue, you'll see the $914,902. That we're having to take from that enterprise fund to put into the stormwater fund to make it balance, due to the fact we do not collect enough money in stormwater, and that will be something that I'll possibly be bringing to the board later on this year. Right now we collect stormwater based on people who have water meters. I think that's very unfair. I think stormwater is a product of everybody that owns property. So I would like to, us to look at possibly doing an assessment and do away with the monthly charge on stormwater. That way it's put on the property taxes and it's properly accounted for, and maybe quit having to take from the water fund for, because this money you take out of the water fund, you are eliminating money that you could use for projects in the future. So, it's money spent, but it's money spent in the right way. The next one is the sewer fund. You're looking at about $10.2 million in revenue there, with spending a little bit more, 10.3. So we're looking at a fund balance change of about $66,000. So the estimated ending fund will be around 12.9. Already mentioned stormwater. Stormwater will be up 2.8 is what we'll collect. And you see we'll be spending 2.8 on down. And it'll leave us with $4,253,000. Lastly, sanitation at 2.7, and we'll be spending about 2.3, so we will have just almost $450,000 in change in balance and leave it at 3.92. A lot of these funds, especially the enterprise funds, you got to remember some of this money is allocated as assets. So I mean, we have a lot of property and things, but a lot of it is in assets as well. So the next page, page 8.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Could you repeat
in
Assets.
in the assets, the revenues, we will have, and a lot of these funds, it's not on this page, but a lot of the funds we have, you'll see quite a bit in the assets as far as looks like cash. But I want you to know a lot of that is the plant. I mean, you got sewer plants, water plants, lines, different things that makes up them numbers. Page 8, there's two things I really want to look at is the debt proceeds. If you'll go down the funding source at the top of the page, you'll look at fiscal year 2018 amended budget. You'll see the 16.2 million there, and then the next year for 2019 you'll see 9.7. You got to remember, and those numbers are escalated compared to the 2017 budget due to the fact we have the half-cent money, and we have some of the we have the half-cent surtax money, and all combined in those areas. So that's why those are a little high there. And then if you go on down to the general fund, I'd like to show you at the bottom there, fiscal year 2017 actual, we had a budget of about 17.8. The amended budget that you did was at 20.8, and a lot of that was due to us spending money that we had collected through the years into a lot of the funds that we had where we could help renovate the park, and buy a lot of things that we needed to that those impact fees were associated to. So we're looking at a total general fund budget of around $14.5 million. So a little bit less than what you did in 2017. This budget does not reflect a lot of capital items. I think we got some other things that we need to look at in the future before we get there. I'd like to turn your attention to page 11. This may be a little confusion, but the percent change, it looks like we're hiring about 12 people, but that's not the case. This is from the original budget of last year, then the amended budget, and what we'll have today. So to let you know what this budget reflects one full-time employee dedicated to the senior center. It also reflects moving an admin employee from part-time to full-time. It reflects moving a part-time library employee to full-time, and one part-time customer service employee to full-time. So in actuality, this budget reflects hiring a total of 2.5 employees. If I could turn your attention to page 16, we always worried about debt. And a lot of things we do is very debt intensive. Anytime you work with any kind of utility, you better be ready to spend money because there's always a new regulation or something breaks, or you need just more capital to operate. With this, if you look at on the total general fund debt, the bottom right-hand corner, look at fiscal year 2018, you're looking at our general fund debt of about $10.7 million. If you look at the next page, page 17, look in the middle box at total enterprise fund debt 2018. You're looking at through all our enterprise funds, we have about $16.5 million. So if you want to know about what this budget reflects, once we pay things down this year, 2018, you're going to have approximately $27.2 million in debt. That's what the city will be in debt. Page 18. This is a lot of the capital asset part of the budget that we added for you to kind of look at. Gives you an idea of the items that we are looking at purchasing. Some of this facility maintenance will be some of the senior citizen center needs some work done to it. We also will be doing some work. I would like to do some work inside City Hall once we move the employees over to the service center, where we can create more room, actually a conference room big enough we can hold staff meetings in City Hall, and quit interrupting on our police department because they have a little bigger room. We're looking at some computers and books and publications for the library. As you can see, we're expecting to spend another $1.2 million on paving the streets, looking at replacing a truck. Of course, we got the Colorado roundabout, which that is paid by impact fees we've already collected. So as new development came in, they paid those. The police department are looking at, we have to replace, patrol cars regularly. We're replacing 3 of those, and then some watch guard vehicle camera systems that will go on those cars as well. Fire has several different things, with the largest being the fire station renovation. We need to replace a lot of CPR stuff there. And then I put in the budget the house on Pennsylvania. It's no secret that, that'd be ideal for the city to own in the future because we own the house next door. So I wanted to make sure we put some money in there just in case, it comes available. Currently, to let you know, it's still tied up in HUD. Next page, page 19. I'm happy to report that Mr. Horton and I have had some conversations with the Raider Football League, and starting next year, the Raider Football League will become one of the city's leagues. So they will still have their board and still operate, but we have a couple fields out there that we already have some of the poles up and all, but we need finished lighting. One field we'll need add a lot of dirt and do some construction to get the fields ready for the boys and girls to play. But I think that'll be a great thing for our community, and to give them some stability, being an organization that's so old. But they're tickled to that. I put some money in the splash pads. We've tried out with the splash pads a lot of umbrellas and stuff. That just don't work. That becomes a hazard, especially the water at the one at Kensaw, when the breeze comes across the water. It uplifts a lot of those. So what we're going to do is some of those sunshades, that'll be about $5,000 at each one, is add, a big one on one end of each, and that'll give people parent shade as they watch their children. And of course, we have several different pieces of equipment that we have to replace from time to time, being pitching mounds or anything of that nature. So community services has to do that. Animal shelter is asking for a truck. We also still have in the hopper a lot of money left from where the lady donated this year, the $90-something thousand. And of course, we're going to spend on a lot of capital improvements with replacing the roof, and giving her, paint and cleaning up, making the animal shelter. It needs a lot of TLC right now. The water, the biggest thing is the state revolving fund loan carryover, the $3 million there. We have in here, we split it in a couple places, is the Mini X trailer and truck. One of the things, piece of tools we do not have, we have rubber tire backhoes, but a lot of times you cannot get in areas with those. We really need a mini excavator. I was kind of surprised coming to the city that it did not have one. One of the other things that we want to try to start rolling out is our AMI metering system, which would be automated metering infrastructure. We have a lot of old meters in the field, and there's some areas that we're going to have to replace the meters anyway. So we wanted to go ahead and start looking at a forward-thinking process where we have automated meter information. We could gather readings multiple days, through towers, and also help some of the consumer benefits is we can look and see and run reports to see if there's been a leak, when they start using a lot of water. So it helps us identify, issues before they get the bill at the end of the month and say, oh no, I got a leak. So, that's a big thing. We got to do some painting on the building, ground storage tank, some maintenance on one of the wells. One of the meter reading trucks is needing replaced. A water main loop in Moet Highlands, some air compressors, and well meter replacement. As far as the sewer, yes, sir.
Can I just, if you don't mind, Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and point out so I don't have to come back to it. In the Moet Highlands, I know we've talked about that, but just so everyone knows, that's Inverness. And we've got it in here as in at East Ave, but it's Inverness, just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sewer, we have the state revolving fund loan carry over the $6 million that we did there. We got some centrifuge stuff we got to do, and of course the other part of the equipment there. One good thing about this, you know, it's not a piece of equipment that we'll need just in water and sewer. It's something we could use on the roads, something we could use on the streets, you know, at our parks. It's something we can use everywhere. Sanitation, we always have to get new garbage cans because they do get beat up. Stormwater, $150,000 more for slip lining. That's been a great savior for a lot of our lines. We want to do that in some of the stormwater. Improvements to 17th Street Bridge, $668,000. That's something task order y'all have already approved. A bush hog, and we got some drainage at DOT on 17th Street as well. That did, yeah. Sorry.
17th Street ditch. Is what
Yes,
you're saying?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right, if I could turn your attention to page 21. This will actually give you the general fund revenue by source. You can see most of our revenue comes from taxation, $8.4 million, then permit and fees, and then some in grants, and then intergovernment revenue, fines and forfeitures. You know, a lot of people think we get a lot of money from writing a speeding ticket. You know, we only get a couple bucks. So there's not a lot to it, but it lets you know that you're going to be bringing in about $14.5 million in general fund revenue. If you turn the page to page 22, you will kind of see how that is laid out in the budget as far as expenditures, each department getting a piece of the pie there. With that gives me to just the overall budget. I didn't want to bore you because I know you can read, but I want to try to answer your questions, and I do have some staff members here to help me. So with that, Mayor, I'd like to turn it over to y'all and
Okay.
let y'all start asking.
We appreciate that overview in the beginning, and I would like to express my thank you to staff, administrators, and all those who worked very hard to help to put together this tentative budget. So thank you all very much for the work that you've done, and I'm sure the rest of the commission shares that feeling. So with that, I would like to open the floor to any member of the commission who has a question for either a staff member or for the city manager regarding the budget, or any suggestions or information that you would like to share or bring forward at this time. Thank you.
I'll be glad to go first, if you don't
Okay,
mind,
Commissioner
Mayor.
Friend, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, let me just say I've been working with city manager for several months on the budget meeting when we normally meet, and I don't mind saying on the record that I'm pleasantly surprised how the budget turned out for 2019. I was a little concerned. He knows that, so we met a little more often than maybe usual on it, but I'm actually pretty surprised he's answered all my questions. So I probably won't have any questions today. But what I would like to bring to the commission today, if I could, is I had if we could just pass these down for me, Commissioner Barnes. I had as it relates to Hope Cemetery that the city owns, I had a resident bring this to my attention, and I just thought it was a great idea and said that I would bring it to the budget. I've talked about it with city manager. I've even talked about it a little bit with Roy. If you've been out there, we have one of the pictures that you'll have is of a cul-de-sac, and it's a green space. It's a large cul-de-sac green space, and right now it's not utilized. Mayor, you may recall that's where we have the ceremony for the wreaths. That's where we set up to have that. But this particular resident said that they thought that it would be a good idea that we put some type of gazebo or some other type of facility out there, so that when you do have a funeral out there, you could have something to get under. Just like the rest of Lynn Haven, that cemetery is getting crowded. And so during the rain, during hot days, instead of going graveside, we would have an option for people to be able to go over there and sit and or have their service right there in that cul-de-sac area. So I've asked city manager to maybe, and with the commission's approval, maybe we could just get some numbers together. I don't have any numbers together today, but I just wanted to plant the seed today, again, and just see if it's something. the gazebo with the you probably recognize from Kensall Park. The other one, the only reason I put that one in there is from Panama City, is maybe the architect has just got those different type of wood so that out there it might look a little nicer, and then also maybe a green metal as opposed to red. I don't pretend to be an architect or anything like that. Someone much smarter than me is going to figure out what we could have out there nice. But anyway, that's all I had, Mayor. I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention today and see if we could consider putting that out there at the cemetery.
Thank you very
you.
much. I certainly think it's a lovely idea.
Thank you, Mayor.
I can see all kinds of possibilities for that. So, anyone else?
Mayor, if it's okay, I'll go next.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
Commissioner Friend, the city manager mentioned this to me too. Mentioned this to me as something, I guess maybe I'm not sure where he came up with the idea. Obviously, it was apparently you. I like the idea. People a lot of times have to rent tents for funerals, and obviously that's an added expense. And if a family can't afford that, this may be a way to alleviate some of the expense of them having to intern their loved ones. So I think that's something that I could get behind. Just to give you some background, I want to thank the staff for the work they've done. And I want to thank the city manager for meeting with me. We met at depth, and I had, a whole half page or half a notebook here full of questions, and he answered them. So I really don't have anything to address other than I like the idea of the football field, and I would love to see that move forward. As an ex-Raider football cheer coach, dad, I always hated having to drive to Callaway or to the beach to watch the boys play. And it always bothered me that Lynn Haven doesn't have a field for our boys to play at. So I definitely like that idea and would love to see that happen. As far as the budget, I've said all along I was concerned this year about our millage and concerned about the income, and I think y'all have done an amazing job of getting it where it needs to be. But I will say, again, like I said the other night, we've got problems that we're going to have to address. And the biggest elephant in the room to me is stormwater. I don't like the fact that we're moving money from one enterprise fund to another, and I think that that's got to be addressed. And I really like the idea of property owners paying for that instead of water accounts. That way, everybody, it's spread across the entire city. Anybody that owns property, because any property is going to create stormwater. So, I like that idea immensely. Lastly, obviously, is our fire truck. This is going to be a big ticket item that we're going to have to address, and I don't know if what the answer is, but I would like to give the city manager direction to find a way that we're going to fund this. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get it in the budget this year, but hopefully we can get it taken care of soon. No, that's all I've got, Mayor.
Sure. Thank you very much. City Manager? Yeah.
Commissioner Russell, the one item that you had asked me about, I put in the budget about the sponsorship, and you may want to discuss that.
Yes, okay.
It's in the community services. There's $50,000 in community services budget for sponsorships, and that actually comes from Commissioner Russell. I think it's a great idea. And I spoke a little bit with the Raiders, and they have that issue as well as a lot of our baseball kids sometimes have that issue. But I'll turn it over to you, sir.
I apologize, and I should have brought that up. I'm not sure which page it's on, but I've had several discussions with the city manager about this. It's apparent that the school board, obviously, they've got their hands full dealing with security and paying teachers and everything else. But the extracurricular activities that the schools have are not getting funded, in my opinion, the way they should be. And I've asked the city manager to look at some way that we can help. Specifically schools in Lynn Haven, which obviously we've got Bay Haven, North Bay Haven, we've got Mosley, we've got Mowat. You know, and it's, the reason that I wanted to look at this, and obviously now if we take over Lynn Haven Raiders, we'll have, you know, that organization that we can help with this money as well. But my thinking was to set up some kind of fund so that we can help kids that can't afford to play in the extracurricular activities, as well as helping the sports if they need money to, you know, I mean, buy a tuba for the band because you know, it broke and the school doesn't have the money, or they buy a new turtle for the baseball field because it is broke, or sponsoring you know, Raider football players that can't afford to it and they don't have time to raise the money or don't have the support with their family to raise the money. The city manager was agreeable to it, liked the idea, and he put it in the budget. And I would appreciate it if you would consider keeping it in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Tender or Commissioner Barnes, either one? Do you have? Okay, Commissioner Barnes is passing over to you, Commissioner Tender.
Okay. Well, as usual, I have lots of questions. Let me first say that I love the idea of the cemetery, the gazebo. And I don't know if any of you have been to Barrancas Cemetery. It's our military cemetery in Pensacola. And there they have, it's a little bit more than a gazebo, excuse me, and they actually have cement benches. And there are 3 on one side and 3 on the other side. And then they have a pulpit kind of area where they can put the casket up there with the preacher does a sermon. And it's great for when it's 90 degrees. It's great for when it's raining. And, of course, at Barrancas, the family has to leave while they do the interment, and then they can come back. But something like this would be absolutely excellent, but I would recommend putting seating in there so that they could probably hold 40 or 50 people.
If you don't mind, Mayor, what was the name of it again? Because I'll be in Pensacola.
Barrancas, Barrancus, or AS. And it's one of our military cemeteries, and it's in Pensacola.
Okay, I'll be over there this weekend, and I'll maybe take pictures and bring it back for everyone.
Yes.
And for city manager. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Now, on page 28, my first question, and the city manager and I briefly discussed this yesterday, and I just want to clarify the very top line, excuse me, salaries, an increase of $72,101. I believe I asked you this, but is that all going to the one employee for the senior center?
No, ma'am. That is spread across my salary, HR salary. It'll be Miss Julie's salary. It will also be the new person and Ian.
Okay, thank you. And then on page 30, and this question, according to what I'm reading, we're allocating $134,800 for our city attorney fees. And my question to this is because his fees were greater than this last year, where do we get the funds from when we go over budget? Because obviously we're going to go over $134,000. Where do those funds come from?
Well, when we go over budget, it's just like any other budgetary item, and considering if that is something that belongs to one of the enterprise funds or the general fund, we have to look at other items. That's the reason a lot of times I have to make a decision to say, no, we're not going to purchase that this year because I need that money to offset a cost we've already incurred or will incur.
So you give up something
we have
to
to give up
keep up
something.
with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mayor, is there any way I could just?
Sure, go ahead.
Just to qualify, and the only reason I'm stepping in is because of the paperwork I did with the legal bills, the last commission meeting. $49,000 of last year's bills were because of Fuel Depot property. That's an item that'll never be there again. So I mean, to me, it's hard to look at last year's actuals and not pull that out and see what possibly could be billed next year. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Okay, then I have a question on page 36.
30 what? I'm sorry.
36.
Thank you.
And it is under travel and per diem. It was $250. We're taking it up 300% to 1,000. Is that also for education, or what is that for?
Yes, ma'am. I think Ms. Vicky has put in some extra training for some of our library staff to get trained in certain areas, so they will be traveling places. So if they decide to utilize one of the city's vehicles, which we don't have a lot of spare, they could use it, or they drive their own, and we have to reimburse for that cost.
Okay, and that does not fall under the training?
No, ma'am. We take out the travel and plus the travel, and if they decide to do per diem, we do it that way.
Thank you. Page 43. And I know we discussed this yesterday, and I apologize because I didn't write it down. Down there we have contractual services. It was 16,000. It's going, you're asking for 69, 319% increase. What was that for again? I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
ma'am.
didn't write it down.
As one thing that I brought to you several months ago was that we wanted our police force to be accredited, and to get their accreditation, we have to send some people through some training. We also have to increase a lot of the training that we do internally and by using external people. So a lot of those services will be done there.
Okay, so those are for instructors.
Instructors and other services that we have to pay to get accredited.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question on page 44. Again, we talked about this. I just want to make sure that I understand this. Supplies, citywide safety. You told me the fire department will be in charge of helmets and safety glasses, and so those will be distributed to all the departments that need that.
Yes, ma'am. As their job being safety each and every day, Fire Chief and I had discussed, and also his Assistant Chief has discussed about increasing our safety awareness for the whole city. And, you know, each department used to budget a little bit here and there, and we was buying, Public Works would be buying some safety glasses, and somebody else would be buying some different one. So if we buy all the same kind, we don't have everybody, well, I'd rather have those glasses versus something else. So we're bringing all that under, and he will be buying things like chaps, he'll be buying ear protection, he'll be buying safety glasses, anything that any of our employees need to complete their job in a safe manner.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is on page 63. The indirect allocation, that I just need an explanation for that because it sounds very strange. We're going from 251 to 452, an 80% increase, but I don't understand what indirect allocation means.
Okay. Indirect allocation is we have 170 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Employees such as myself, employees like Vicky, employees like Ben sometimes, Bobby. Everybody does multiple jobs that touch the enterprise funds. And as we touch different funds, we also have, this is for actual sanitation. So when somebody calls, typically a lot of times the girls up front answer the phone, which are actually customer service reps, but they may be answering for sanitation 1 minute, they may be asking for something else. So same as we did last year, we did an adjustment to send indirect funds from the enterprise funds to the general fund to make sure we're capturing those costs for employees, because a lot of those departments only have like an administrative assistant. They don't have all the other staff they need.
Okay. Did I understand you just said we have 170 employees? I must be lost in the dark ages. I thought we had about 60.
Employees?
Yeah.
No,
160,
we have,
159, I think.
159?
hold on. I'm sorry, 158 and a half. That'd be a part-time.
Thank you.
Sorry, I said the wrong number.
Nope, that's fine. Thank you. Those are all the questions I had.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. Did anyone else from the board, before I ask my questions and make my comments, does anyone else on the board have anything you want to revisit or maybe forgot to mention? Or, okay, everybody's good? I just had a couple of things that I wanted to mention. when city manager was talking about the putting a shade on each of the splash pads, I was hoping, and it may not be possible this year, but as I go around, and I really think the Parks and Places concept that Lynn Haven has really embraced has made us a star in the county. I mean, everybody wants to be here. There are places to go and things to do. We have numerous playgrounds all over our city that were built just sort of out in the broad open sun with no shade, no trees, no sails, and so they're not used. If you go by them, they just sit. The one at Kensaw, the one out at the sports complex, the one, there's some of the equipment at Porter Park, Bel Air. They're just too hot. The slides are too hot. It actually burns the legs of the children. So if we can find something in our budget to just start, and the other thing is the equipment is degrading because it's in the sun and it's very expensive equipment. So just to maintain it, save it, and not lose the money we have invested there, I think that's something we might want to look at and consider. So that's just one of my thoughts. Another idea, it's not my idea, it's something that even used to be done in the city years ago, is the speeding tickets that we don't get the money from. We get such a small amount from those tickets. I would really like us to revisit and possibly look into the possibility of having our own magistrate again in Lynn Haven that meets once a month or twice a month, and that we would handle our own tickets and that we would gather all that revenue for our city instead of sending it to the state. So that's just a thought. I have gotten a little research done on the cost of a magistrate. Generally, they meet the day before the commission does. I was looking at some of the other places that do it. I think it would be a great benefit, and it might just be the place we could find to put the money for that fire truck aside. I'm just saying. So that's one thought. Another is stormwater. There's a percentage of each building permit that's issued that goes to stormwater. It's only 15%. I think we might want to consider raising that percentage a little bit or a lot so that we could start catching up with stormwater, that percentage in those building permits goes to stormwater, a higher percentage. If we could look into the possibilities of that, I think that would be a good thing. I'd like to commend the expenditures that have been made for our police and fire departments and our plans for them. I think one of the reasons that we're considered to be the safest, most beautiful place, the most desirable place to live is because it is safe. And so I want our fire department, our police department, and the times that we're living right now to be well equipped for anything that should come up. And I just want to commend the direction that we're going in with them, and not only about the equipment, but the fact that they have also put some money into bounce houses and things that they've been doing at events to reach out to children, to let children know that policemen and firemen are their friends. And I think that is an intangible value that we are recouping right now through that community reaching out that they're doing. Finally, this is never a popular subject as long as I've been mayor, but I feel that I need to bring it up again. This is the 4th budget that I've been a part of, so I want to bring it up one more time. I really think we need to look at RFQs and a different plan for our attorney services, no offense, Nick, and our auditing services. We, in the last 5 years, we did spend $821,414 on attorney's fees, and even if you subtract that money from the fuel depot, that's still really high. We've spent $242,904 for auditing fees over the last 5 years. You put those together, it's $1,064,000. That's a lot of money for consultant fees. Not saying that money's the only thing we should consider, but I definitely think it's a place we need to look at. Best practices for accounting says that any organization has a different auditor at least every 5 years. That's just best practices, and we haven't changed in over 20. So I do offer one suggestion, one solution for the attorney, just something to consider. While sitting at the luncheon this week, actually, for the firemen and policemen, I learned that we already have an attorney on staff in Lynn Haven, a very capable attorney. She is already working for the city, not in that capacity as attorney. She is barred presently in Texas, but because of deployment and because of a new law that President Trump has just passed as of September 18th, if you are an attorney and deployed in another state because of your spouse's job or vice versa, you can practice in that state if you have a sponsoring attorney. So my thought is, even if you look at the average salary of $164 that we're spending right now for attorney services, if we thought about and possibly authorized our city manager to look at a way to look at these numbers and how this could be done. If we offered, this person right now is making approximately $40,000. If we increase that salary to about somewhere around 70, 75, we'd still be, well under 50% of what we're paying. And then whoever the sponsoring attorney would be in Bay County could be that person who sponsors her as a Florida attorney, and at the same time, a consulting firm that she could look to if she had a question that she couldn't answer. So this would be a way for us to save about, and just, just looking at it, the first look, around $75,000 or $80,000 a year on attorney services, and have someone in-house, full-time, that we could have on-the-spot answers from, and not have to wait and not have to share consulting. So those are my ideas. I would hope that maybe we could consider those, and I really believe that our auditing firm, that we really need to look at an RFQ, and if we pick the same one again, so be it, but at least giving that opportunity to have that fresh set of eyes as best practices says to do. So with that, those are the ideas that I have. My questions about the budget I've asked already in advance. And so I'd like to congratulate everyone on a job well done. Thank you. Is there anything else for the good of the cause from the board? So at this time, I didn't give you all enough time. They say a good teacher or instructor always gives 60 seconds for people to think if they have a question. I definitely did not do that.
I'm just looking for.
And there we go.
Yeah, see, thank you. Well, I was going to ask Michael
See?
after, but I appreciate it. I might as well. I thought I saw something in for Kensaw Park, and I thought it was for shade, because I completely agree with the shade. Is it? I thought it was already in here.
It is.
Okay.
And I will.
Not splash pad shade. That's a separate. Okay.
It's splash pad for shade.
No, but I thought we had Kensaw. I thought I saw.
I do have some pricing.
Okay.
And I will be bringing that to the second one.
Okay.
I also would like to add that there is a couple more items that has came up since this, so I'll bring those to you as well. One being is I think a lot of our decorations and stuff for the city is so old. We really need to spend some money to showcase our park over here and things of that nature. So
Okay.
I'm going to be putting some of that in there and a few more items that's come up.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I had one more question.
Please go ahead.
Asking you about the magistrate. Would they also take care of our zoning, or not our zoning issues, our code enforcement issues? Would they do that as well?
Go ahead, City Manager.
We already use them for that. We have a magistrate that comes with code enforcement. So like the couple you and I have been working with,
Right.
they came and that's who applied the fines and the mandate that they had to comply with.
Okay. Thank you.
And the city just has to pay a fee to the magistrate for being our magistrate and coming. So it's not an exorbitant fee. It's we would well recoup.
Yeah,
With what
I
we're doing.
agree. And I also agree completely with the whole upkeep of the playground equipment. We took the 4-year-old to Kane Griffin this last Sunday, and there are 3 slides on one unit, and all 3 are in the sun. You can't even go down them. Yeah. So I think upkeep on that would make a huge difference. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Okay, at this time, then I would like to open this, that we just have 2 members of the public. We also have staff, so anyone who'd like to ask a question or make a statement, yes, go ahead. And this is a public hearing, and so, it's a workshop. It's not really a public hearing, but we're not running short of time, so if you have more than one question, I'm not going to cut you off.
I learned my lesson last year where I was reprimanded for speaking for 52 minutes.
If
so
it
I
gets
will
too
not
long,
take
I'll
that much.
let you know.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Again, thank you, Commissioner Tinder. You covered a couple of the points that I had on my bucket list. Page 31, if I could.
Sure.
5th line item, 1, 2, 3. 5th line item, it says pension drop buyout incentive in the amount of $190,000.
Yes, ma'am.
What might that be?
As city manager, it's my duty to always look at possibly saving money and doing the things that we need to do. We have several employees in the drop program, meaning they've already reached their retirement. They know when they're leaving. Part of this is to look at the future, we have some superstars that are under some of these people because they are some of the higher paid employees at the city. With this particular thing, I have, I think, $190,000 in there. If these employees continue working, they will earn about $450,000. So you can see it's a significant savings. Some of these positions I will not refill. So there'll be extra savings there, so that's what that's in there for, to give them an opportunity. I'm not going to force anyone out. My whole idea is if you're working for some money, using the employee policy, I will be able to offer them a chance to, if you want to go ahead and go.
Oh, thank you. And page 25, please, the first line item, Bay County Restore Act, $450,000.
Yes, ma'am, that's something we've been working on, and actually the mayor went and met with Bay County 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Mueller. That's something we've been working on for probably a year and a half, 2 years. It's BP money, and this will allow us to get the grant in and finish Porter Park.
Oh, no, that was my question. I wondered where it was going to, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
thought there were restrictions on the spending.
They are, it'll be for bathrooms and some paving and taking the utilities underground to make it a lot more sightly.
This is on page 10. It's not
That's fine.
specific, but I noticed there are a couple of part-time employees. Are part-time employees given the ability to buy health insurance?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Mission. Quick question. I thought I overheard we are hiring a person to be in the senior center.
That is correct.
Does that mean you reviewed the contract and you're canceling that contract?
No, sir, they canceled it on us.
Pardon?
Bay Council of Aging sent all the commission and CC'd me a copy. They have decided they do not want to renew our contract.
Okay, so now the city is going to take over the senior center.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I just hope the public gets a hold of that.
Is there anyone else? Okay, we have finished about 30 minutes ahead of schedule, which is a good thing, so we can take a little break before the 5 o'clock public hearings begin. I would like to just kind of alert the commission. We do have our 100-year-old resident from the city of Lynn Haven who will be coming at approximately 5 o'clock, and I'll be doing the proclamation for her. Whenever she comes in, if she's here before we start or whenever, I would like to go ahead and do that because she's worried if she doesn't get back in time that she won't be able to have dinner over there at 5 o'clock. So before I start the public hearings, if you see me jump into that, that's what I'm doing, and then we'll go right back to public hearing. Thank you. We're done.